Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome into our Sunday Night Small Cap Sunday Podcast. I'm your host, Shadd Dales. Hope you all had a great week back from Vegas as we had our live stream on Friday, trying to get ready as we get into the new week. Yes, cannabis stocks, we all know, not good right now. But what is, needless to say, is the crypto industry. And why not? Bitcoin eclipsed over $100,000 and the industry is flying red hot right now, especially if you factor in the new administration that's coming in next month, the Trump administration and Elon Musk on January 20th, 2025. So what does 2025 look for this industry? And what are some public equity stocks in this space that we should be looking at and considering? Tonight, this show is all about the crypto space. We're going to focus on some small micro-cap companies, 13 companies that we will review in mining, service providers, and one hybrid company. And we're going to go through a 7-step process. In each process step, we're going to narrow the list down and bring you with 3 companies that we like and are interested in. So with that, let's welcome in TDR lead analyst Bill McFarland here on a Sunday evening. This should be a very interesting show given how red hot, white hot, whatever you want to describe it, this industry is flying right now.
Yeah, it's fantastic. No doubt investors are thinking, should I buy the stock? Should I buy some of the coins? Should I be invested in the service providers supporting the coins? And also you look at MicroStrategy. A lot of people that company's a little bit of a head scratcher how they're structured, but it's very popular. People often want to buy a company involved in crypto instead of just buying a coin.
Yeah. As usual, all views in the TDR Sunday Night Small Cap Podcast and the guests of this podcast are per the opinion. You should not treat opinions expressed by us or guests as investment advice. The views on this podcast are solely intended to be informational and are not investment advice. Okay, so like I said, 13 companies, if I'm correct. And we have is it 7 or 8 mining companies? We also have some service providers and one hybrid company that works in both. So you want to maybe touch on just an overall approach as to what you're getting out of here, because like you said, we have a 7-step process. We want to narrow the list down step by step to ultimately give you 3 companies that we have grabbed our interest. Is that the approach? And if so, what are some key things from an analyst standpoint that first grab your attention in this space?
Yeah, so the point would be this. If you're working as an analyst, it would be a Monday morning. A portfolio manager would say, get me 3 crypto names by the end of the week, work on
Yep.
it. And so the first step, you'd start going through a process to find out how many crypto companies are there. You find out that you're supposed to find small cap and micro caps, and you would start working through a process so you could get the portfolio manager the top 3 names and be able to defend that. And so this is the process we're going through today. The first step we're going to look at to find out who are the companies. The second step, how is the market performed? We're going to look at. That'll give us a good indication, and then we're going to get into the more difficult work, trying to find the top 3 in the next 5 steps. So this is a good process to go through, and it's a very more institutional approach that retail investors can use.
All right. So with that, let's jump into it. Step number 1, who are the companies as we dive into first some of the mining companies that focus on the cryptocurrency industry?
Yeah, so I found there was 13 companies, and
Okay.
there was a list. There was a much bigger list. Maybe it was about 30, but I weeded out about 17 that just weren't really focused on crypto. Maybe they're a computer supplier of stuff, and crypto's one of their businesses, but they're trying to promote that. But I found 13 ones that are really focused, that the majority of their revenue and focus is on that. And so that was the purpose of the first step that we went through here.
You want to outline some of the company names that you found?
Yeah, so in mining, we had 8. There's Argo, Bit Mining, Bit Digital, Bit Farms, Greenidge, Hive, Spear 3D, Stronghold. And then in the service was BTCS, Canon, eBang, SOS. And then there was Mawson Infrastructure, which was a miner, but also was working to help mining companies with their infrastructure. So that gave us a nice list of 13 companies.
Okay, so in summary, you have 8 miners, 4 service providers, and 1 combined is what we've outlined here, right?
Right, correct.
Okay, now on to step number 2, which will be an important one. How have these stocks performed in the last year compared to, say, the darling of the space, which is Bitcoin? What have you noticed? What's the current environment look like in the small and micro cap industry in this particular space?
Well, one company outperformed, which was BTCS. They were up 149% compared to Bitcoin being up 129%. But the majority of the companies lagged the actual coin over the year. So this leads me to believe that based on last year, that there's probably less volatility and maybe less upside in the actual companies behind it. And that was kind of what I thought going into it, but it was good to confirm that when we saw the numbers. Some of the companies have fallen behind because they also have the operational risk,
Yep.
which is not just factored on the coin price. So this is good if an investor wants more of a diversified approach and wants also the operations behind the company influencing the price. This could be something that's potentially less volatile than investing in the coins.
Okay, good to know. And for those interested in learning more and more about this industry, BTCS actually trades on the Nasdaq under the ticker symbol BTCS. A lot of these companies actually are Nasdaq listing, which is no surprise given the tech side of the stock exchange. But anything else outside of the companies? I think we look at some of the highest performers, as you said. How about some of the lower performers? What grabbed your attention?
Yeah, so SOS was down 85%, Argo 55, Green Niche 47%. So if a company that's involved in crypto is down this year, that tells you that we have to do a lot of operational due diligence on the companies. How good is their credit? How good is their earning quality? Because obviously their stock price is not highly correlated to the coin. So the last thing an investor would want to do is saying coins are doing well, let's buy coin stocks that have something to do
Okay.
with it. That doesn't compute. You have to go deeper of an analysis to understand the individual companies.
Hence the hype that's behind this. And we saw that firsthand, obviously, this week with that TikTok star, Haktua, that she's in a whole world of trouble considering the fact of how many people lost a ton of money. But clearly, she was surrounded by people that took advantage of her 15 minutes of fame. But do your due diligence, right?
Absolutely. I've,
You
I've been
think,
approached by different people that want me to help them do a white paper on a coin. And the first step I always ask them, like, well, how far are you into this project? What are you doing on your own? What's your thesis? And a lot of people are like, nah, I just want to make a lot of money. You can do the work for me. And so there's a lot of people that are just have no idea what's behind that.
yeah,
I'll
you
leave
think
that
people,
comment how that correlates to coins, but it's something to think about, making sure the thesis is solid behind.
well, you'd think people would have learned, obviously, with what happened with FTX, but still, here we are making sure that we obviously walk through a step by step process from an analyst standpoint and how we view this industry, knowing it's white hot right now. Okay, on to step number 3. We're going to focus on bad credit and bleeding cash. This is where currently, right now, we've got all 13 companies still alive, but we're going to narrow down the list of companies quickly by eliminating those with a high risk of bankruptcy in the next year. What did you find here?
Well, here's the part of the thesis. Imagine I do all this work as an analyst, and on Friday I'm meeting with the portfolio manager,
Yeah.
and I say, "Oh, you got to buy this company. It's a really great top three." And he looks at it and says, or she looks at it and says, "Yeah, but there's a risk it's going to be bankrupt next year." So that's the first thing you got to get rid of the list. If there's a risk that a company could be in financial problems, they have to solve that first. So how
Yep.
I would define a financial problem is it's not just bad credit, but bad credit and negative cash flow. So any
Okay.
of us at some point, personally or a company, we could have bad credit. But if we have good employment, good opportunity, we can dig ourselves out of the hole. But if you have negative cash flow that's getting worse every quarter and you have bad credit, I'm just going to take them off the list. So there was 4 companies in this step that we eliminated.
Okay. So before we get into the companies, I'm curious, do you find that bad credit is a common theme for a lot of companies in this space?
I think a small cap, let's just say small cap in general, I think about a third of companies would get eliminated just like this. And this is something that we don't see on the show because I don't necessarily mention it, but a third of companies I look at right away in the first step, they're gone. And that's about similar ratio that we've got to on this show with mining and crypto as well. So I think it's not just the industry, but just companies in general.
Okay, so you talked about 4 companies that will be eliminated. This is a straightforward step that should be done earlier in the analysis process. But one approach is to use the Altman Z-score that you have mentioned here, that is negative and negative leverage-free cash flow. So if a company's score is below 0 and has negative cash flow, it indicates a significant risk of bankruptcy. So of these 4 companies out of the first 13, what do you want to share here on our next chart?
Yeah. So out of these charts, we have we can see how bad it is. These companies are losing between -5 million a year to -24 million a year, and their credit is so far. You're considered to be getting into a credit risk when you're below +2, and these are way down in the negatives between -3.9 and -11.2. So these four companies we can just push off.
Okay, so bye-bye bit mining, Sphere 3D, Greenidge Generation, and Stronghold Digital Mining. So now we're down to, if I'm correct, we had 13 or 14 companies off the top. We're down to 9 or 10 now.
We're down to 9 companies.
Okay, down to 9 companies, and those are Argo, Bit Digital, Bitfarms, BTCS, Canon, eBang, Hive Digital Technologies, SOS, and Mawson Infrastructure Group. On to step 4 now, which is revenue growth. Down to the 9, let's examine the compounded revenue growth over the last year and the last 3 years. What can you share here?
Yeah, so this is something that we're looking at now. We want to, most importantly, we want to see how they're doing over the 3 years, but also in the first years. We know that crypto's flying, so crypto companies should be flying as well with their revenue growth. And if not, it's
Okay.
not going to be exciting. Because remember, our mandate was go find me some good quality, fast growing, exciting crypto related companies. So first of all, when I look at the 3 years, I get really concerned about eBay. They've been losing revenue at 36% a year over the last 3 years. They're a service provider, a supplier. So obviously their stuff's not relevant. I don't have to go and review their company deck or thesis. I can see it in their revenue numbers. So I'm going to take them off the list. We can see that also with Canon. We can take that off the list as well because they with Canon, we're going to let them stay, but we can see that their 3 year is 45%. So because of that, they've had good 3 year growth, but this year's down. So that could be a number of reasons. We would let them stay. But the other ones like SOS down almost 50% this year.
Yes.
That's an example that we got to move on as well. So we're going to now eliminate a couple companies here at this stage. We're going to let Canon stay on because it's only a 1 year situation. We're going to go further on to see if that still could be something that could hang on.
Okay, so we go from 9 to 7 companies. Those eliminated now is SOS, which trades on the New York Stock Exchange under the ticker symbol SOS. And as you said, eBang, which is on the NASDAQ and trades under the ticker symbol E, B as in Bob, O, N as in Nancy. So reduce the list to 7 companies. Now we're looking at a group that is more manageable with credit ratings that are stable and improving, obviously, in rapid revenue growth. And again, I will outline the remaining 5, or should say 7 companies. We have Argo Blockchain, Bitfarms, Bit Digital, BTCS, Canon, Hive, and Mawson Infrastructure Group. On to step 5 now, profitability metrics. So this is one table showing how we determine the earnings quality of a company. Again, what can you share?
Yeah, so we talk about this every show. We talk about gross profit margins, SG&A costs, and that leads you to your EBITDA margin, which should be positive. So when we look at these companies, we first of all we can scan quickly on EBITDA margin, and we find
Yep.
some are just awful. Like we see Canon the -74. So we let them come through the screener because they had a poor year last year. We said let's take a look because they had a good 3 year. Here they get eliminated. We see also with Mawson and BTCS, we see a negative 22% EBITDA margin. It just is no good. They're spending too much on SG&A. So here we can eliminate 3 more companies because their combination of gross profit or SG&A costs are just creating an EBITDA margin that we can't defend as an analyst when we bring these ideas to a PM.
Okay, so when we look at profitability metrics and what are the most relevant for assessing small cap crypto companies, is it very similar to the traditional small cap environment when reviewing these companies or completely separate?
100%. So no matter what they're doing is they're going to have their actual profit that they make from what they actually do. So this gets concerning with Canon or Bitfarms on the actual operational level of their actual key business. They're not positive gross margin. So even if they
Right.
grow the business, nothing's going to happen. So that's a danger. But then also just with the SG&A costs, we look at it's just like all other small caps. They're going to have employees that they're hiring and such to get them out there,
Yep.
to do stuff. That has to be at a reasonable margin. And eventually, when you add those two up, is going to tell you what your EBITDA margin is when you factor those two in. And if you're negative, that's a real concern, because we haven't even thought about the interest costs or the capital costs of building a mine or all of those costs. At this stage, with crypto being so good, if they can't push into positive EBITDA,
Yep.
we want to eliminate them at this stage.
Bill, where are you finding are key factors, I guess, that are contributing to the profitability of these small cap crypto companies? Is there anything that you found in particular pertaining to this?
Well, when it comes to the farming, you have you're going to get revenue based on your mining activities, but then you have all your input costs, which your cost of goods sold. Electricity is a huge thing. You also have cooling to keep all your machines cool and such. You then also you have to make sure that you're in a jurisdiction that's favorable to keeping you there. Then also you have obviously the big capital cost of putting stuff together. If you're a service provider, you're selling maybe technology to companies and such. You have to make sure that your technology is improving and that it's not becoming
Yeah.
irrelevant. And so those are the main factors that one would be affecting the gross profit margin, would be those key input costs. And then the SG&A is just how do they run their business and how lean they are running all their operations outside of the actual input costs of their business.
Okay, so thoroughly explained well here. So as I said off the top, 7 companies: Argo, Bitfarms, BitDigital, BTCS, Canon, Hive, and Mawson Infrastructure. Who are the new companies that you're now eliminating from this list?
Yeah, so now we're going to start looking into cash flow, because we only have 4 companies. So we're going to go into our 6th step now. So what I want to make sure is that
No,
these
but before we get
companies.
into that, I
Oh,
just
sorry.
wanted to
Oh,
again highlight. I just wanted to highlight. We're going to remove which companies of that list? It's
so
Canon,
yeah, so
BTCS, and Mawson, correct?
yes, those are the 3 that we've eliminated.
Okay, so now we're down to 4 companies: Argo, Blockchain, Bitfarms, BitDigital, and Hive Digital. So we go into step 6 now, which, as you said, you have sort of cut you off there, but it's cash flow statement lines. Sorry, should say cash flow statement lineups with their earnings is what you've described here. So walk us through what you mean by this.
Yeah, so the idea is, so we've seen that they have earnings quality, their revenue is growing, their credit is in check, but we want to make sure, are they actually producing cash?
Okay.
Does the cash line up with the earnings? And so normally we talk about leverage free cash flow on the show, and I'm skipping that for crypto, and I'll tell you why. Leverage free cash flow it takes away after the investments you made in capital expenditures. Mines are building, they're always spending on capital expenditures. So I'm going to take that out because it's such a large component. Let's just look at the operating cash flow that they have.
Okay.
Is their core business producing cash before their investments in capital expenditures? And what I found when I did this is Argo, Bitfarms, and BitDigital, their core business is producing cash. That's fantastic, positive cash flow. Hive, before they make investments in capital expenditures, they're operating at a loss for cash flow.
Okay.
So I want positive cash flow matching the earnings. So I can get down to 3 companies now by eliminating Hive and going through this process.
Okay. Are there examples that you could provide of companies with positive cash flows from operations in the crypto sector? Like, what exactly have you found that these companies are doing when it comes to cash flow versus, say, Hive being eliminated? Is there anything in particular that you found?
Their metrics, their key metrics are working better. And so when their input costs that they're coming in are better, they're able to manage, expenses for things like cooling, the jurisdiction that they're in, the metrics just work better that are leading to cash flow. And so
So,
we're in a high point of coins right now. So we want to make sure, looking back in the year, this is a good run. So at this time, if those metrics just aren't lining up and it's producing negative cash flow, it's not something at the time that I could look at.
okay. With that, like, what are some of the implications of negative cash flows that you found? And one in particular with Hive here, what grabbed your attention pertaining to that?
Nothing. It was a combination of the different components. So it wasn't just one that I said, well, that's the reason. It was different components that go back to their SG&A and their selling margins and stuff. So when I looked at it Hive, it looked pretty good there. But then they have just additional costs that were coming in on from their operations that were leading it to being negative. And so
Okay.
with that, This told me why it's so important to make this next step. Because if I just was looking at their profitability metrics, it would have passed the test. But when it came to the actual cash coming in, it didn't. So that could be a number of reasons of why cash flows doesn't match up. Because when you count revenue, it doesn't have to actually be cash coming in. And your expenses, if you don't pay them or you're
Right.
taking time, it increases your cash flow or makes it negative. And it's just showing me that that's something at this period of time, looking back 12 months, is not lining up. And so it's just something for now that I wouldn't want to. It's a yellow flag at minimum.
All right, so well explained. I feel like we started this show. It was a Monday morning, as your boss said, find some companies for me, and now we're turning the corner. And it looks like it's Thursday afternoon, as you got to present your 3 companies now for deep consideration to your boss come Friday morning. So with that, Hive Digital is now eliminated, leaving the final 3, which is Argo Blockchain, Bitfarms, and Bit Digital, as you said, for 3 companies now for deep consideration. What are the logical next steps of these 3?
At that point, you would get an okay, say, hey, this is my thesis. Why? You'd be defending your thesis. And then the next steps would be, okay, let's take a look at these companies in details. Let's start going through the presentations, the analyst calls. Let's read everything that they've said about their earning reports, and let's book a time to talk to management to see what they have to say. So that would be the next type of logical steps.
Okay. And of those 3, was there anyone in particular that grabbed your interest more than like what are these 3 mean for this space right now heading into 2025, given how much momentum is building for the overall industry?
I think it's an interesting. They have, they obviously have a good headwind behind them. But if their stock is down, that's an interesting story to understand. So the next step, the question would be, why is some of them, for example, with Argo, why is the stock down? Why is Bitfarms only went up 7%? Bit Digital's went up 45, but there might be an opportunity to not be late to the crypto party by buying
Right.
something here at a discount. So that would be something that would be quite interesting to go through a detailed analysis and understanding and get the management's take about their business.
Okay. I was going to say, what additional information, I guess, would you seek from management during analyst calls?
You can get a lot from the presentation deck, but I just would question their theses and then also ask the $1 million question: why do you feel that the market is not? Why aren't you up like the general market? What is your thinking behind what needs to be done to do better in the marketplace?
All right. So I love this process because, as I said, we started out with the 13 companies, narrowed it down to 3, and that's Argo Blockchain, Bitfarms, and Bit Digital are the final 3. Of those 3 companies, Argo Blockchain, it actually trades under what ticker symbol off the top of my head? This is on the NASDAQ.
ARB on London Stock Exchange.
Oh, it is on the London Stock Exchange. You're right. Bitfarms is TSX under the ticker symbol BITF. And Bit Digital, NASDAQ, BTBT. So there's your final 3 based on that process. Interesting to say the least, but I'm very, very interested to see how this industry goes. But definitely a process that's new, and I hope a lot of people got some great information pertaining to this as to what you look at from the beginning, the list of companies, and then most importantly, we see a lot of similarities. I think, Bill, from some of the small cap stock environments that we've done outside of crypto, but there are a lot of similarities. But let's face it, the way they monetize and generate revenue is something unlike we've ever seen before because it's a brand new sector, which probably will be regulated at some point very soon.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
good, and I think this process could be useful for other industries if we wanted to look at anything. Maybe next week I was thinking maybe we want to look at some AI stocks. It could be a process that we go through, so we'll give some thought based on the feedback that we received this week.
Yeah, it's wild based on AI and what it's doing in the last 6 months. But listen, appreciate the walkthrough. Leave some comments below. What'd you think of this process? Do you like some of the companies we highlighted? Anyone we're missing? Love to get your comments below, knowing how much interest is getting basically ramped up and being produced overall in the crypto space. Bill, appreciate obviously this show, and let's catch up next week, okay?
Look forward to it.
Hey everyone, thanks again for watching. Hey, we're humming along, and it's all because of you and the audience and community that we're building. So again, make sure to smash on that like button and leave lots of comments. Who do we have up next? You let us know. Who should we interview? What companies? Is there anything you like? Is there anything we're missing? We're all here for you. Let's get on with each other and build this community for all of us to benefit. As usual, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, because in the end, we wouldn't be here without you. Thanks again, everyone.